Today we'll talk about tools to work with the Crone Archetype or the Crone energy. I'm going to share with you 5 oracle decks, 1 tarot deck, and 2 books. Hello my love, it's Rachel here. So I shared with you about my work with the Crone and how amazing is this energy to work with when we are going through moments of transition, moments when we are crossing a threshold, especially those inner thresholds when outside your life seems to be the same, but inside there are powerful, massive shifts happening. The Crone's beautiful for that. And when I was there and I started feeling like working with the Crone, the first face of the Crone that showed up to work with me was the Kalia, as I told you. So I decided to look for some decks to work with her. I like to work with this energy like as usual. Inner journeys, lots of journaling. So inner journeys like meditation, visualization, and so on. But I really like to work with oracles when it comes to work with the Crone. So I was there looking for some decks to work with the Kalia. Not that easy to find. It's not that easy to find decks to work with the Crone energy, and not that easy to find decks to work with the Kalia at all. So I saw some decks, they were out of print, and none of them would really call me, you know. So I ended up seeing this deck here, The Rooted Woman by Sharon Blackie, artwork by Hannah Willow. So the reason why I had the feeling that this deck could help me was this image here, the Kalia. I decided to give it a try, and I'm glad I did. I really love this deck, guys. It's published by Hay House, so it's easy to find. And this deck here has different suits. So it's beautiful. It's very thoughtful. You can see that as well. People, Cheryl and Hannah, they thought a lot about this deck, right? So working with this deck, we can go in a journey from the beginner, let's say, until you reach this stage here, the rooted woman. The woman who is grounded in the land, in the wisdom, her personal, authenticity. Let's say her authenticity. And this deck's very nice as well. Well, you have several faces of the divine, like this one here. I'm not going to Seridwing. I don't know how to pronounce, guys. I'm sorry. But so you are going to have different faces of the divine here. And something that I really like to do is, for example, you can place the face of the divine feminine you're working with. In my case, it was a Kalia. You can place this image and then ask, what do you have to tell me? And you can even go through the suits here and ask, for example, let me grab the guidebook here, and you can go and ask, for example, for one place, one ally that you're going to have, and the journey, for example. So you are going to have information about your own journey when you are crossing those thresholds, when you are in that moment of transitioning. So it is a deck that I love, guys. I really love this deck, and I strongly recommend this deck if you can and if you want. Now, just before that, let me tell you, do you need specific decks to work with the Crone energy, with the muse, with the whatever energy, with whatever divine face of the divine feminine? No, you don't. If you have one Rider-Waite-Smith, that's more than enough. One Rider-Waite-Smith, or Thoth if you prefer Thoth, or the Tarot de Marseille, whatever deck you have, it works super well. And it's important to say, of course, that I love to use my Tarot of Mystical Moments to work with the Crone. I use her to work with everybody, with everything, all kind of work. So you don't need decks for that. It's just important to clarify. I'm just sharing my experience here, and maybe you have these decks or something like that, or you are actually planning buying one deck in a conscious way. But we don't really need specific decks to work with any kind of energy, okay? Just to make that clear. So I told you I had 2 books that I want to share with you, and I'm going to share the first one because it is by Sharon Blackie as well. It's this one here, Wise Women, Myths and Stories for Midlife and Beyond. So we're going to have tales here with the crone, right? With the old woman, with the elder woman, and so on. It's a great book, so I would work with them together and I would read one tale every night. It was a great experience. Very, very powerful set, I would say. I like them. Now, the next deck that I'm going to share with you is the second phase of the crone that I started working with. So the 2 phases of the crone that I started working with, and it was very, well, that I really worked with, let's say, because now I'm starting, but slowly to learn more about Baba Yaga, but we are not quite there yet. As I told you, I think in the video about working with the Divine Feminine, I told you, like, we are meeting someone new. It's interesting to ask, who are you? Where are you from? And learn a little bit about that person's story, let's say. They are not people, right? It's not a person, but I think it's nice to get to know them. And the second one was the Hecate. So I went to look for a deck and I found the Hecatean Path by Ken Payne and Chris Butler, published by Luis Carabeo. And as we know, Luis Carabeo usually publishes small decks, right? Not many cards. And this one has 60 cards, so I really like it. This deck here is a deck that I like a lot. Maybe the artwork is not the one. Well, it's not my favorite. Maybe it's not the favorite for many of us. But the deck's really, really powerful, guys. It's really, we can see that they worked a lot to bring this deck to life. As we know, Luis Carabeo guidebooks, they are like, 4 lines only, a small paragraph. So I would love to have a bigger, larger guidebook. But anyways, these cards, they are amazing. And I'm going to tell you, working with Hecate, for dream work. Wonderful. So before bed, I would draw from these cards, from this deck, usually 3 cards. And I would ask, because that's something that is important to do. You ask. You have to ask if you want to dream. And you may be asking the creative energy, the light, your soul, your unconscious, these faces of the Divine Feminine that you're working with. You're going to ask to access messages in your dreams. And the messages, they come. Especially here, this deck has something, and Hecate has something about dreams with me. It's really, really fantastic. And you have to learn, guys, to ask. So, even asking about the time that you want to wake up. Do the test. If you ask yourself, oh, I want to wake up tomorrow at this time, or I'm going to sleep, I'm not going to roll on my bed. Ask things before bed and see what happens. Maybe you're starting doing that now, so it's not like, oh, in the next day everything changed. Of course not. But start doing that. Start asking things and start noticing what happens. So this is the Hecatean Path Oracle. One oracle that I feel that is great to work with the crone energy as well is the Lantern Oracle by Angelina Mirabito and illustrated by Yulia Alejo. It is a deck by Blue Angel. It says, illuminate the shadows, empower your path. And this deck here in the box, they say, embark on a beautiful, soul-nurturing journey with the ever-present and loving light of the eternal feminine wisdom as your guide. And for me, feminine wisdom is what I think that is part of our work here to cultivate. And the crone, she holds tons of feminine wisdom, right? So this is the deck, and I don't know if it's a deck actually for shadow work. It says illuminate the shadows, so I think some people use more for shadow work, but it's that real face of the crone, because when you work with the crone, she does have that sweet face. She does have that caring face. Yeah, she can have that. But she has another face that is like, this is the real truth. And that's it. She's going to just throw that at your face. And you have to be ready for that. And that's part of, as I told you in the beginning, of us learning to be a little bit like that as well, you know. I don't even, yes, because I don't think I shared with you, but the crone is that face of the feminine that says enough and says no, right? Because as women, sometimes in our society, we can have a hard time saying no to people, and have a hard time saying yes when it comes to our own well-being or things that are for us, right? And the crone, she says enough. And the crone, she sets some boundaries, right? Healthy ones. And it's important to think, when you are like too much in that people pleaser place, when you cannot say no and this and that, you are still a little bit too stuck probably in the mother energy. And yes, maybe you can proactively start thinking a little bit about moving to the crone energy, this moment when we are grounding ourselves, when we are living in a more authentic way, not caring so much about what others think. Because in the end of the day, when people that have a hard time saying yes, saying no, when they tend to say yes all the time, what you're looking for is to be loved, to be cherished, right? And it is a challenge to understand that I can be loved even if I say no. I can be loved even if I am authentic and if I really manifest whatever I'm feeling. If I want to do something, I say yes. If I don't, I just say no. Not so afraid of hurting other feelings, because the fear of hurting other people's feelings, they are actually connected to the fear of hurting our own feelings, right? I'm not going to be loved, I'm not going to be appreciated if I say no. Another deck that is beautiful to work with the crone energy, in my opinion, is the Earth and Bone Oracle. You know, I love this oracle. It is by Syrian Shadow and published by Rockpool, our beloved Rockpool. This deck's beautiful, it's amazing, and we have lots of flowers and skulls here and skeletons. And I love skeletons, I told you already. Not having them like this, but well, even back then, before they become like trendy, I used to like to have some skeletons on my t-shirt, or rings, or earrings, necklaces, because I really like it. Bones, when you work with bones, we see what we have that is so similar. We are so similar when you look at our bones, and it's something that stays for a long time. And it's something, in the end of the day, about what really sustains us. That's connected to the crone energy. So that's why I like to work with this deck, and this deck can be pretty sweet as well. Now, just a second. Talking about sweet face, when the crone has sweet face, for me the Kuan Yin oracle is beautiful. For me, Kuan Yin has this beautiful aspect of the crone, that compassion, that self-compassion, that self-love, that ability to just stop, pause, and accept things a little bit more. So I already talked about this deck here. We have a video I'm going to link here. I'll probably create a review just for this deck because I love this deck. Now, the last oracle deck that I like to use to work with the crone oh boy, Inspiration Cards, I think is the name, by Sky Autumn. And I even placed here some of these cards that have strong Crone energy for me. Look, right? This deck is fantastic. I love this deck for, it's so versatile. It is, I don't know guys, I don't have a list of my favorite decks, but maybe, I don't know if this one would be the favorite one, but the message there always spot on. When I ask for a message for myself or for my clients and students in sessions, it's always like, what? You know, it's impressive. This deck's fantastic, and there's so much wisdom here. So much wisdom, and of course, wisdom is so connected to the Crone energy. So it is a deck that I really, really love to use to work with that energy as well. You'll find this deck on her Etsy store. It's an indie deck, and I'm even considering buying a backup copy. I saw that she, after, I don't know if every year, after every 2 years, she usually releases like 10, 11 new cards. So she just released, this is already, look, it's chunky, but she just released more, I think 11. And let's see, I'm not feeling like buying only the 11, but maybe I'm going to buy the backup copy, and it's going to be with those 11 cards. Now, it is, guys, the only tarot deck that I use to work with the Crone. As I told you, you can use any deck, but this one is the Folkloric Forest. Oops, Folkloric Forest Tarot. We have an unboxing here. And when I bought this deck, I didn't know why I was buying these decks, just because it was Earth Element, but I didn't have any intention with the deck. Was even feeling my father's energy coming through this deck, but he has a deck already, a tarot deck that that is my father's tarot deck. And this deck was here. And then when winter came, when winter hit, and when I was working with the Crone again, I don't know, just something said, use the deck. And this deck, she's fantastic to read the Crone energy. It is an Earth Element deck, so that sense of, well, the land, you know, I would say it is like the forest Crone, that when you go into the forest and you meet the wisdom of the forest, and the wisdom of the forest invites you to find out the wisdom inside your own forest. The forest that sometimes is the archetype, is the symbol for our unconsciousness, right? So what do I have to explore there? With the Crone at the door, the crossroads, at the threshold, guiding us, protecting us. Fantastic deck for that. So I love working with this deck. I have been using this deck a lot in January specifically, working with the Crone now in this beautiful winter. And finally then, I told you there was 2 books. This one is the second book. It's called Mysteries of the Dark Moon, the Healing Power of the Dark Goddess. So yes, when you work with the Crone, you're going to work with the face as well of the Dark Goddess. So when you think about the Dark Goddess, you're going to think about those aspects of the feminine that we forced to retreat in our society. We didn't want it to see. So women should be all very young, very fresh, or they should all procreate, they should all have kids. So when this woman, she becomes an elderly, right, a Crone, she becomes a little bit useless. Maybe the kids, they're all grown-ups, they don't need you anymore, so you cannot procreate anymore, and you don't have your beauty anymore, you don't have the same energy anymore, and then you should retreat, you should disappear, right? And that's what we did with the idea of the Crone. So that's why we have in our society all this desperation to fear of getting older, especially for women. Men, we don't see, men, they don't want to get old as well, but not as much as women. Women is much more as well about, well, about beauty. And this book talks a little bit about that. It's a great book. I think it's a classic. Guys, I hope this image here is not a problem on YouTube, because you never know. But this book, so it is by Demetra George, fantastic book. But this book, the only things that she's a little repetitive sometimes, so she repeats the same stuff many times, but in general, it's a very, very nice book to work with, to understand more about the Dark Goddess and the Crone as well. Here, she talks a little bit about some goddesses as well. She talks a little bit about the moon, the dark moon, our relationship as human beings with the moon, like our ancestors used to relate to the moon, and so on. So, my dear one, if you enjoyed this video, I would recommend you to check my video about working with the Divine Feminine, my video about working with the Crone. Okay? Leave in the comments your thoughts. I'll see you in the next video. Thank you for being here. Send you lots of love.